Sociopathic mother-in-law next door entry. It is 29th of May, Thursday. So we left off, the last entry was just following the funeral of stepdad, and when we all got back to the house, the crocodile tears of the husk to keep the attention on her. At the service, the funeral and the wake afterwards, obviously lots of attention is given, no emotions then, putting on a brave face, some might say. I would just say a husk. And then you get home, you don't want the attention to shift, you want it kept on yourself. So along come the crocodile waterworks. And again, that might seem harsh, but it's my firm belief. I know what I see playing out right in front of us. So anyway, this entry is, I'm going to try and cover the aftermath, or maybe the year following the funeral, the death. This is where it got really intense and really a lot of hostility from the husk towards the beacon. So if we remember that when stepdad passed, the beacon was exactly that, a beacon of light, supporting the husk through everything she needs to deal with, both physically and, dealing with the organisation of the funeral and everything else that you have to deal with in terms of phone calls and getting everything in order. So the physical world, the physical stuff, but also she was there for it on an emotional level. Not that she needed it, she doesn't have any emotions, but it doesn't take away from the beacon and the emotional support that she was ready and prepared to give her if needs be. And the beacon took time off work to deal with this, to support her, to help her. Obviously the beacon was trying to, having to also putting her grief second. When's she going to grieve? So she took time off work, and for a 1 or 2 week period, as you can imagine, the beacon was never away from the lodge, the lair, the dragon's lair. And that's obviously the right thing to do, but you can't sustain that. At some point she has to go back to work and start to get on with life, even the bits which are getting into the physical world. It gets a point where you just have to get on with it in the physical world. You've got to go back to work. You can't stay off work forever. You can't just abandon your family forever. Obviously, I mean that as a joke. But for that period, a couple of weeks, the beacon did nothing but tend to the husk's needs. Myself and my daughter, our daughter, came a second to the husk's needs, which was fine. I took over everything in the household, and that was, that's how I supported the whole thing. I looked after everything at home, while the beacon was able to 100% support the husk. So, eventually all of that needs to go back to normal, the physical world, go back to work, get on with it. But in the emotional world, you still need to deal with it and come to terms with it. So when the beacon went back to work and, started to get her normal sort of routines back into check, she shouldn't withdraw her support from the husk. It was going to have to be balanced. In other words, the husk is going to have to share the beacon's attention. And I think, I said it at the time to the beacon when she started to show hostility and cruelty towards the beacon, just in little ways, little passive-aggressive ways. I said to her at the time, I think she's getting used to this attention and she doesn't like it when it disappears. The personality of the sociopath dictates that they always want more. It's never enough and they always want more. And you can apply that to the material world, consumerism, but you can also apply it to, attention and the feeling that generates is just feeling good, as in I'm important, I've got the attention, 100% attention of my daughter. It's the way it should be in the sociopath's mind. And I said to the beacon at the time that I honestly think she's struggling to cope with you removing some of the attention. And I'm not sure the beacon was on board with that theory, but I'm pretty sure she is now, in terms of she just wanted her to be 100% loyal and devoted to the husk. And when she's got that, oh boy, she'll let you know when she's not happy if you try and move it backwards, if you try and reinforce your old boundaries. No. You've put new boundaries in place. Boundaries which I'm much happier with, that I can suck off your resources. And where you run round after me, they're the boundaries, the new boundaries that you've put in. You can't change your mind. This is agreed. That's what's going through the mind. So, the hostility. One example. It wasn't long after the death. So this is before the real hostility started. It was between the death and the funeral. And bear in mind what I said, that the beacon is putting all of her grief and all of her emotions and feelings to one side while she focuses 100% on the husk. She had to take time out for, I don't know, maybe half an hour. And she went out in the car and she just went for a drive in the countryside for half an hour and then just pulled over and sat and cried. And sat and cried for the loss of her stepdad, or her actual dad in terms of his role in the family. She just had to pull over and have some tears. It's utterly, it's sad, deeply sad, and utterly shameful that she has to take time out to do that, and she can't just do that with her family. And I don't blame the beacon for that. And that was the pressure she was put under, either by herself or by the husk. The husk has set the expectations all of her life. So anyway, she comes back from this drive where she's been crying. She goes back to the dragon's lair. She walks in. She's clearly got red eyes, clearly been crying. And she walks in and the husk says, in a really cold, monotone voice, "What's wrong with you?" What's wrong with you? What do you think is wrong with her? This is ignorance on a scale that is, there is no scale for that level of ignorance. Put your arm around her, give her a hug, and tell her you love her. How is that so difficult for these people? Now, if you think I'm being harsh, saying she's a sociopath, and that they're crocodile tears, and that she's got no empathy, and always out to make a gain, and manipulative. If you think all of those things are harsh, just look at that behaviour, what I've just described, that scenario. What's wrong with you in a cold, unsympathetic, unempathetic, impulsive way, without any thought for the person standing in front of you, who's actually a daughter, who you're actually meant to love and nurture and care for and look after forever. So the beacon says, oh well, I've just been having a moment about my stepdad, and the husk just made some sort of noise and like no words, just a as if to say, why are you crying over him? As if to say, like you didn't love him. Stop pretending. I don't know. I'm only guessing what that noise represented, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't, never mind, darling, he misses you as well. If you're really proud of you, I'm proud of you. Think of all the happy memories. Just when you think of them, make sure they're happy tears. I'm a bloke. I'm not meant to know this sort of shit. So, sorry for swearing. I'm not meant to know this. I'm meant to be a tough, hard-faced, masculine, doesn't cry, isn't in tune with emotions, therefore women. Which is obviously nonsense. But you get my point. Why is a man preaching to a woman how she should treat her daughter? That is ridiculous. The idea, the fact that I'm actually doing this is in and of itself ridiculous. So anyway, she doesn't say any of those things. She just goes, phew. And what was the impact? So the impact was the beacon feels completely invalidated with her emotions, unworthy, that she's just being stupid and she should pull herself together, and that she didn't really, it's not, the husk doesn't believe her. This is the impact on the beacon, that her own mother doesn't believe her, that she loved her stepdad. There's no validation there for her at all, no support, and after everything that the beacon has done for the husk, it's disgusting, absolutely disgusting. And what type of person does that to their own daughter at that time? It's just utterly disgusting. And she's obviously done that when there's nobody around. If somebody else, a third party, had have been present, she wouldn't have done that. she would have faked what she believes would be the correct response. Now, obviously, remember, because it doesn't come naturally, the correct response doesn't come naturally to her. It would be a bit of a car crash. You would see through the fakeness of it, because it's an act. Sociopaths act anything that we find as natural. But my point is, if there had been a third party present, she wouldn't have done that. This is how sinister she is when she feels safe. So remember, it's another important thing to remember, that when the sociopath feels safe, i.e. no prying eyes, they behave. That's when the true personality comes out, when there's nobody to put an act on, and there's no risk of them being exposed. And for some reason, she feels safe exposing a little bit of the true husk to her daughter, and possibly the other daughter as well, Roadkill, because this is why she feels safe, because they're never ever going to leave her. She can get away with abusing them, and they're never ever going to leave. And that is the safety net. That's why the husk is able to show a little bit of the husk in these times, because it's safe to do so. There's no prying eye. She's not going to expose herself as the fake sociopath to any of her friends in the village or anybody else, any other family members. There's no risk of her exposing herself, so she feels safe. And when she's safe, the real husk comes out, or gives you a little glimpse of what's behind the shell. The guarded shell. So that was really shocked me, and that's again what kind of started as things started to ramp up at that point, because I was really paying attention to what was going on. So fast forward a little bit, the funeral goes by, and then it wasn't long after the funeral, this is in September 23, we're having a couple of drinks with a couple of friends in our little bar in the garden, and we've invited the husk round. So you notice how we're now adopting her into our own social life. Very unhealthy. Whereas before it was the four of us. When stepdad was alive, it was the four of us, healthy balance. We weren't friends, as in, we're a family. We weren't friends, we weren't bringing them into our social circles. So anyway, we're sitting having a drink with a couple of friends, the husker's there, and we're talking about stepdad. And these two friends of ours have got, they run a charity, and the charity is a tall ship, an old-fashioned tall ship, which my friend can skipper, takes it out. It's a charity for underprivileged young people to get a foot on the ladder, learn new skills, build social skills and camaraderie, teamwork. It's a fantastic charity. Anyway, they offered to take the husk and her closest friends and family out on the tall ship, out to sea, to scatter stepdad's ashes, because stepdad had worked on the water, either on the river or on the sea, all of his life. He was pretty much born and bred on the sea, on the water, if that makes sense. So what a huge honour for his memory to be taken out and the final goodbye given at sea with all of the trappings that go along with that. So the Coast Guard in attendance, the river, the people who worked on the river saluting the ship as it sailed past on its outward voyage. This was like, this is stuff of dreams, really. What an honour, what a privilege. On this old ship, he would have been totally in his element, having all of this laid out for him. And this is all thanks to our two friends who offered to do that, obviously free of charge. Well, what they said was, please just make a donation to the charity, which obviously, you know, we can raise the funds whichever way we wanted to and make whatever donation we thought was suitable. So, but nonetheless, what a fantastic gesture. So we're sitting in the bar, this offer is made, and the husk impulsively just says yes, okay, want to do it. So there's an example of how impulsive she is. Doesn't think things through. Doesn't weigh up anything. Just impulse. What she's doing there is she's making a decision based on her emotions. Now forget for a second that, well, as I know I say she's got no emotions. She's only got the base level emotions, basic instincts, and that's things like fight or flight. Is there danger, fear, or something that makes you feel good? Normally in the physical world, being pampered, having gifts, having lots of attention, all eyes on you. They're the sort of emotions, and basically the guilt. Guilt is one as well. She asked, that's another lower base emotion, resides in the lower part of the brain, to put it symbolically. So to avoid guilt, she just says yes. I don't want to have to feel, this is what's going through her head, I don't want to have to feel the guilt and the awkwardness of saying, can I sleep on it please? After your amazing offer, I'd like to sleep on it. She can't deal with the guilt and the shame of saying that, even though a rational person would understand that the people making the offer would understand that. But no, it has to be a yes. And not only do you need to make sure that you're happy to accept the offer, is it right for you? Is it right for stepdad? Is it really what you want to do? You've just met, this is the first time she had met these friends together. She doesn't even know him. He's had a drink, and not to say that his offer isn't genuine, but you like to see how these things pan out over the course of time. Let it happen naturally. So anyway, she accepted the offer, and then a few months later, the two friends came back with a date, and the date was something like May, the following May. And after all of this, they've gone to all the effort to prepare themselves that they're going to do this for the husk. And whatever else goes into organising at this very early stage, but still organising a date, thinking what it would look like and who would potentially be available. Can they get the crew together? Blah, blah, blah. She refuses. We told her, right, the date is set. It's Tuesday the such and such of May. And impulsive, no, can't do it. Oh, what? You ungrateful sociopath. What these people have done, and you've had a few months to sleep on it and decide whether or not it's what you wanted to do, and now you're throwing it back in their face after they've organised however much of it up to this point. You're now saying no. So we were asking her, well, why? And her excuse was, it's a phenomenal excuse. It's a weekday. That's it. What do you mean it's a weekday? Well, people won't be able to get time off work. Time off work? 90% of the people coming are retired, man. They're dodging the coffin themselves. What do you mean time? What are you talking? Notice how nothing makes sense. She's so used to lying without challenge. She gives these excuses which don't make any sense, but she's gotten away with that all of her life. Her daughters have never challenged her on it, and now I'm starting to get just a little bit fed up of her lies. That's a lie. That's not the real reason, because 90% of the people are retired, close family, very, very, very close family, and very, very close friends. And the other 10% are people like me and the Beacon and Roadkill and Roadkill's husband and our daughter. I think there was one couple on the invite. I think it was only for a dozen people. It wasn't a free-for-all. I think there's 2 people on the invite who are still working, and they were his best friends. A couple that regularly visit him when he was on his deathbed. That was the quality of their friendship. Nobody else visited him. His own son didn't even visit him. Anyway, they were more than happy, obviously, to shuffle their diaries around. Bear in mind, you're giving them about, 4-5 months, 3-4 months notice. Bear in mind, when somebody has a funeral, you don't say to the funeral director, I can't have it on a Tuesday. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous excuse. It's a lie, and it's covering something else. And apart from that, the effects of it are totally disrespectful. Total disrespect towards these 2 friends of ours. And bear in mind that these 2 friends, they're not doing this for the Husk. They're doing this for the Beacon. Out of their respect and admiration and love for the Beacon, and how much she spoke about her stepdad. And that's why they're doing it. The Husk is just a passenger in this event, but nonetheless. So she wouldn't be getting this offer if it wasn't for the Beacon and these amazing friends and how much they love and respect her. But try to explain that to the Husk. To the Husk, it's all about her. And these people have made her an offer, and she's showing her true colours here, which is a bit unusual, because I'm not sure it's a safe place. But she's basically just throwing it back in their face. And I was absolutely foaming. How can you do that with such how do you face those people? She obviously thinks the lie She thinks everybody's stupid because she's dumb. Obviously because she's never been challenged. She's in her whole life on her lies. She's obviously thinks she's clever because she knows she's lying and she thinks people are falling for it. So she thinks she's clever and everybody else is stupid. And it's not until somebody comes along like me and starts challenging her, it exposes her for how stupid she is. And like, how can you fall for this lie? How can our daughters have let her get away with this all of her life? To the point where this is where we are. She's so stupid and dumb, but she thinks we're buying it. The Beacon has never bought her lies. She's never ever bought them. She just doesn't challenge her. And there's a phrase at work in the work environment. There's a phrase that goes, if you think having a difficult conversation is hard, wait until you see how hard it is if you don't have that conversation. And this is the prime example of that piece of philosophy, but only in a relationship. They've never had these difficult conversations with the husk, and now look how hard life is becoming, putting up with these lies. So anyway, we know it's a lie. That's not the real reason. What is the real reason? At the time I thought it was just to spoil the Beacon's kind of gesture, to kind of take it away from her and just ruin her day, knowing full well that how much this was going to mean to the Beacon. She was so excited, and exactly that, excited, loving every minute. She would have been, responsible for this day, it happening, in other words, the magic that made it happen. And at the time I just thought the husk doesn't want to give her own daughter that satisfaction, because she doesn't want her daughter to have any satisfaction, because she's envious of her. She's envious of her beacon of light. So anyway, but I now think it could be a combination of that and something else. What also started following after the stepdad's death was resentment, clear resentment towards stepdad, even though he was dead. So now I look at this story about the going out on the tall ship and her cancelling it. I now see it as part of the resentment towards her own dead husband, because there was certainly a lot of resentment there when he was alive, and I just don't think she wanted, I think she wanted just to forget about him and move on, but not for the reasons that most people would want to do that. Not because you've grieved and it's time to get on with your life. I mean, you never forget them, do you? Do you know what I mean? You don't ever forget them. You just move on. You can't live in the past. So anyway, I just think she wanted to just be done with, and she didn't want to give him any more accolades. There was clearly resentment towards him in relation to the Beacon crying over him. That was resentment, as far as I'm concerned. Wasting tears on him. So anyway, that was a shocker. Now what happened? I said to the Beacon, right, that's it, just forget about it. Do nothing else for her. She doesn't deserve anything. But the Beacon, being the Beacon, convinces that, well, no, I want to do this. the husk might think it's for her, but it's not. It's for me. It's for me and my stepdad, me and my dad. I'm doing it. And as soon as she said that, I got it. I totally got how important this was for her. And again, I do believe that was one of the reasons why the husk didn't want it to happen, because it was so important to the beacon. So it did go ahead, and it was an absolute success. What an amazing day. There was food put on below deck. The lifeboat came out, and there was a good minute of silence, half-mast. Even the lifeboat crew observed that, and then, did a little circle around the boat and then sped off to leave us in privacy. There were salutes coming down the river. It was just, wow. It was an absolutely amazing day. My daughter climbed the rigging all the way to the crow's nest. Absolute legend. No fear. And he would have been so proud of her. And stepdad absolutely loved and adored our daughter. Vice versa. And he would have been proud of the beacon, putting all of this on for her. Amazing day, amazing friends. Everybody thoroughly enjoyed it. So the beacon got her final farewell to her dad in the end. So it ended on a good note, thankfully. So going back to soon after the funeral, there was that debacle with the tall ship, and then there was other signs of hostility towards the beacon. There were scenarios, for example, where she would give lots and lots of recognition to people who had been really good to her throughout the whole grieving phase, and then come and make the beacon feel like she hadn't been that. I don't want to go into any great detail. Let's just say it was constantly praising other people and ignoring all of the effort and support that the person standing in front of you has given you. And the result is the beacon feels totally unappreciated and not worthy, because that's the truth. She is completely unappreciated and, in the husk's eyes, not worthy. Remember, the result or the impact of the behaviour, the words and the behaviour, the result and the impact on the receiver is the intention. That's really, really important to remember when you're dealing with a sociopath. The impact or the result is the intention. If I go out and do anything in this world, I have a desired result in mind, and you do everything intentionally to get that result. This behaviour is no different, and that is one of the toughest things to get your head around, in terms of it's hard to accept that she does this on purpose with intent. But it's also really important because you actually build strength, because you realise that you're not imagining it anymore. It's not you. You're not being paranoid. You're not being oversensitive. You're actually dealing with somebody who is so broken inside, so self-loathing, that you're never, ever, ever, ever going to live up to their expectations, because they've completely buried any real humanity, deep inside of the gourd or the husk that they've built around them. And they need to maintain that gourd and that husk, because what that is, it's a fake persona of perfection. It's for the outside world to see. It's there to protect the fragile, broken child at the heart. And that shell is perfect. It has to be perfect because it's protecting her from the outside world, so everybody thinks she's perfect and nice. But it's also protecting her internal world so that she thinks she's perfect and nice, so she doesn't have to deal with the trauma of that broken child, self-loathing child, deep, deep down inside of her psyche. And that's why you will never, ever, ever be worthy, because there can't be a chink in the armour. She's perfect in every sense in her mind. And anybody who threatens that needs to be destroyed. They need to be brought down. Their self-esteem, their confidence, everything. It needs to be brought down. Their level of consciousness needs to be reduced. So the husk can maintain its position as the best. Nobody can beat the husk. And I believe that's why she's hostile towards the beacon. And that's why I believe she's hostile. So little examples again in this period following the death. Things like she would make her feel like other people were more support to her than her. Was one time where we had friends over, actually the husk's friends staying over. They began cooking food and putting on a night for entertainment, and the husk would just make little comments like, after the food everybody enjoyed it, and then the husk saw the recipe book and said, you needed a recipe for that, as if to say, oh, that was mediocre, I could have just thrown that together without a recipe. Little things like that. And then me and the beacon were having a bit of banter around the table, and I was sort of winding her up, just having a bit of banter, and the beacon said to everybody, you see what I have to put up with? This is just like banter that people do in front of people just to make a bit of comedy, I suppose. Anyway, she said, do you see what I have to put up with? And the husk, just totally cold, stony face, just said, you don't have to put up with them. And the beacon just looked at her and said, yes, but I want to. And the message received from the beacon was along the lines of, oh, what, you think I should just leave my husband, be a strong husk of a woman like you, because all of your relationships have failed? And it was a put down. There's no doubt about it. It was a put down in front of everybody at our own dinner table, in front of the husk's actual friends that we're entertaining. These things are totting up. These are just little examples, but the little examples are really important. So they sound petty, but when you realise how these people, how their minds operate, it's then easier to deal with and accept when the big ones come, the ones which are really, really hurtful. Because if you're not prepared, they can just knock you for six, and they can make you think that, you're imagining things or you've got it wrong, and they can gaslight you. But all of these little setbacks and little knocks, little emotional little jabs trying to bring you down, it's actually just making us stronger, because we know what she's about now. And then when a big sucker punch comes, she won't be able to land it. Hope that makes sense. So all of these little petty things are important to understand the mindset. So there was another night round about the same time, just a few months after stepdad had died. And this is the worst one. I think it is. So again, we've invited her friends over, this couple, who were also good friends of stepdad. Roadkill's there again, and her husband. And we're celebrating what would have been stepdad's 80th birthday. So this is only 3 months after he died. He nearly got there, nearly hung on long enough, the stubborn little git. So anyway, we're honouring his 80th birthday, and the beacon put on a meal. We're putting people up again, the same old story. It's us doing everything. And after the meal, we all vacate to go to the bar for some drinks. And what we had all decided to do as well, this is how serious we took it, or how much fun we were trying to have with it. We took it serious, as in it was a serious thing to do, but we had fun with it, so we could enjoy it and see him for what he was, just fun to be around at the best of times. So anyway, we all decided, like, you had to wear a checky shirt, big checks preferably, because that's what he always wore. He always wore checky shirts, and he always had a packet of baccy in his top pocket. So some of us even had a packet of baccy in our top pocket. So we're all sitting around having drinks, dressed in our checky shirts around the bar. And one of the drinks he liked was a pint of Guinness, but he also liked what's called baby Guinness. So baby Guinness is, I think, it's like a little liqueur, and it's a shot of, I think, Tia Maria, and then you pour Bailey's cream on top of it, and the cream floats, so it looks like in a shot glass, it looks like a baby Guinness. And he liked a pint of Guinness, but he also had a taste for these baby Guinnesses as well, when somebody introduced him to them in the pub, our local pub. So I used to go down the pub with him regularly, as you know, to the point where the regulars thought he was my dad. And they got him onto the baby Guinnesses, and he loved them. And he made a name for himself in the local pub with the regulars, to the point where even when he died, they all had, they bought everybody in the bar one night a baby Guinness, and we all toasted stepdad in the bar. And it was really nice, people just like being nice. Makes you feel good emotionally. So anyway, that's what we were doing in our bar. After the meal, we're all huddled round, and the beacon is pouring these baby Guinnesses, and she's put all of this effort and care into this night, and making food and being hospitable, and then pouring these baby Guinnesses. And we all raise a glass, and we all one by one say, to stepdad, to stepdad, to stepdad. Each person in turn, obviously we say his real name, we don't say stepdad. And then it comes to the husk. And the husk doesn't say stepdad. She says, to Elizabeth. Again, I'm just making this name up. But point is, she doesn't say his name. She says a different name. So it goes, everybody's raised their glass. It goes to stepdad, to stepdad, to stepdad, to stepdad, to Elizabeth. Who the hell is Elizabeth? And then it dawns on us, Elizabeth is stepdad's twin sister. So we're all celebrating stepdad's 80th birthday, and it's actually his twin sister's 80th birthday as well. So that was her cover story. So we're not. That's our cover story. Again, it's a lie. She's not raising a glass to honour his stepsister. That's a lie. Why would you do that? It's totally inappropriate. It's somebody's birthday. It's always somebody else's birthday on your birthday. Many people were here to celebrate your dead husband's birthday with a drink, his favourite tipple, who even the lads down at the pub had the decency to raise and toast to his name. And you can't do that. His wife, his grieving widow. And you can't do it. You can't say his name. You can't acknowledge him. Even in this absolute, what's the word? It's essential that you do it. Just put an act on and do it. You're a sociopath, aren't you? Put an act on. Couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. So the cover story is, it's for Elizabeth. It's her birthday too. He's his sister. I don't care. So that's the cover story. It's a lie. That's not why she's doing it. It's not why she's done that. She's done it because resent and envy. Because she's not getting the accolades. She's not getting the attention. She's loved the grieving widow period, and she can't give it to him. She resents him. He's dead, and she still resents him. And she can't put herself second even for a dead man. And it's the only conclusion I can come to. Total envy. And after and she got away with it. Again, she got away with it. I mean, how are you going to challenge her on that when you're having this moment and you've got guests over? What, you're just going to have an argument and the party's over? Again, she's safe. It was safe for her to do it then, and she showed her true colours, or a little snippet of her true colours. The husk came out of its shell for a split second, and that, I don't know if that's gone unnoticed by everybody else in that room, but certainly it didn't go unnoticed on the Beacon and I, and we spoke about it. And again, at the time, well, I think I just said it the way I say it now. It's just total envy, totally envious of somebody else getting the attention. She just obviously didn't think he was worthy, didn't think he was worth getting all of this admiration. I was thinking, nobody's, I mean, on a normal person would obviously process this in this way. Nobody's saying anybody's perfect. Nobody's saying stepdad was perfect, but he's not here, and we're just going to enjoy remembering about the good times. That's perfectly normal. But she can't cope with that because she's riddled with envy, and she probably thinks that she's some sort of victim, and that's why a lot of this resentment is coming out towards him. But yeah, I just thought that was really telling of the sociopath's true colours coming out, and what was going to follow.